Hello and welcome to this video where I'm going to be demonstrating how we can use refs in React to reference small underlying DOM elements. So you probably heard about refs, whether it be through a YouTube video, on some blog or some forum online. And if you're like me, I didn't traditionally understand exactly why we needed refs. But after researching them more and coming across the reusability aspect as to how we can directly access a DOM element and not have it trigger a state update or a re-render, they kind of become fairly useful. So I want to demonstrate how we can use them today. And in a lot of demonstrations I've seen people just do text fields and that's pretty much it. And I am going to show you a text field today, but I'm going to show you how it exactly works under the hood in React. So if you haven't seen this before, this is a image that was put together, I believe, by somebody on Twitter. Then Dan Abramov made some changes, but essentially what's going on here is we have three life cycles within React. So we have the render phase, the pre-commit phase, and then the commit phase. And this will become very useful to when it comes to understanding how refs exactly work in React. So first things first, we're going to want to import a few things here. This is just a basic create React app setup. The only thing that I've modified in here is I've got a class that's .mt, which is margin top. I have a button, an input, and then I've just got a basic CSS reset in here with the Roberto font. Apart from that, everything's just running as standard from create React app. So what I'm going to do, let's crack on by doing useRef, useState, useEffect. And we're going to be using all three of these. And firstly, I want to demonstrate how we can just basically use a ref to handle focusing on an input box. So if we go ahead and import these three, once you've done that, I want you to go ahead and just click in here. So inside our function of app, we want to create a ref. So we'll do const, and just like assigning any variable, we're just going to call it input focus ref, and then just do useRef. And by doing that, we've created a reference essentially, not to anything at this moment in time. But I don't want you to be getting all confused or all scared as to, oh, we're using refs, this is for the advanced React developers. It really isn't. When we look under the hood, all that useRef is, it's just an object with current inside, and inside that could be a value, and we can access that current value, and I'll show you how to do that now. Firstly, what we have to do is go ahead and use useEffect. And in here, I'm going to do the structure current from input focus ref. And we shall save that. So far, so good. The general rule of thumb, by the way, is if you are using a reference, because that's all it is, it's just ref is just short for reference. It's just a way to access underlying DOM elements in React. If you are using a ref, just ask yourself, is this necessary? Can we not just do this by using the traditional methods of, letting React re-render? Maybe it's not, so maybe this video will be really helpful. One thing to note is that refs do exist outside the re-render cycle, or the render cycle here. So you can see here in the pre-commit phase, you will see that we have the render phase, the pre-commit phase, and the commit phase. You'll see that React updates DOM and refs. So what does that exactly mean? Well, in the render phase, we're going through, essentially React goes through and it can look at what's going on within the virtual DOM. You can pause in this particular state. You can, it can be aborted, it can be restarted, but in here, like it says on the left, it's pure and has no side effects. Well, what does no side effects mean? Well, it means we're not doing stuff like making asynchronous calls. Because if you're making an asynchronous call on the render phase, and then you come to the commit phase, you could get data that is making either two calls, and maybe you're firing off to a database and it's inserting two orders, because you're doing it once in the render phase and then on the commit phase. So we don't want to do that. So all the side effects we want to handle within useEffect. So that's why I brought in useEffect right here. So refs, they are fairly simple. It's just an object and they aren't reactive. So when we do change a ref, it's not going to update our visual elements here without causing a re-render. And that's why I brought useState in here to demonstrate how I can exactly do that. So now we've declared input focus ref, we're going to do function focus input. And all I'm going to do here is just console.log focused on the input with DOM value. And then we will just input out this particular reference. So now we've got this, I want to go ahead and create, we'll do a main here. I want to start demonstrating how we can use an input to basically just focus. When we hit the page immediately, I want to focus on to the input box, but I don't want any, I don't want to have to re-render or do some fancy stuff to be able to get that focus. With refs, you have to essentially figure out that if you want to provide a default value, it's not just like placeholder or value, because you know that stuff can get wiped out. We want to provide a prop, or a property in this case, of default value. Click inside, I dare you. That's good. Okay, so we've got an input now. And you can see when we're clicking inside, we are getting the focus. And we can inspect this. And we should get some console.logs in here. Let's pull this up. Oh, one thing we actually have to do is we have to add an event listener, because we are going back to pure JavaScript here. So I've just structured out current here. So I'm just going to go current dot, let's take it back vanilla. Let's go straight back to vanilla JavaScript. And we'll add a focus in there and just pass in our function. And then, like with vanilla JavaScript or jQuery or whatever particular framework library you're using, we need some sort of cleanup, right? So in React, we can just do return, then we'll do current, remove event listener, and we'll remove the focus that we've applied, and we'll clean that up. So let's take a look. There we are. We've focused on the DOM element, and there's our ref, current input. That's essentially what it is. It's just an object with a property and value, and you can pretty much see the full internals. And if you go look through the core React code, it's very, very simple. So current is currently set. Current value is, and we'll just do current. So let's see. There we are. And if you want to, you can actually, where it's adding the event listener here, we can just clean, let's just do this. We can just do current.focus. Let me add the listener back in there a second. We'll do current.focus. And there we are. As soon as I jump into the page, or focus on the page, you get the immediate focus. And there is some accessibility advantages and disadvantages to immediately focusing on an element, but I think in some cases when you want to immediately focus maybe a screen reader, it's nice to have this option to be able to just go ahead and focus the user who maybe has accessibilities that need those types of impairments. Well, who has those types of impairments, we can help them out by focusing on the immediate, say, main input. So if you're typing into a website and we want them to focus immediately to the username, we can do that with by bringing in a ref. So this is useful, right? But there is, the general rule of thumb is to avoid it, and I like to conceptualize refs in a way that I will only use them as like an escape manager. So a ref is an escape manager for me. Do I really need to use a ref? And when I pull in useRef, I like to ask myself, do I need this? Can I not do this somewhere else? Some good examples of using refs is when you're bringing certain libraries that you want to interact with React. So if you're using D3, maybe you've even brought in jQuery or Mood Tools, or some of these libraries that people still use. D3, very popular library, and a lot of people do use it with React, and it's very useful to be able to hook into the DOM API that the browser provides us, because we sometimes need to activate maybe an animation and we don't want to have to re-render and lose all those values. So it is really good, and it's very useful to use. And here I'm just doing this on the initial load, so that'll work on the initial load. You can take that off. Let's have a look. And each time we do re-render up, we'll get the useEffect going through. So if you don't know a useEffect, this will pretty much go through each render. This one will just hit the first time, and then this one will watch a value. So if you have value to watch, that's in here, and then you have some sort of value up above that is state. In this case, what I want to do on each render, so if it goes through, the useEffect's going to run and it's going to focus for us. But yeah, that's pretty much how we do focusing. You can actually use in React autofocus, but you will get the linter will pick up saying it should not be used as it's for accessibility and usability issues. And some people do use autofocus, and it does work well for them, because I believe it works. I think it gets pulled out of React DOM, and I believe it only works maybe on mount, and you can't dynamically set it. But generally, when I've been setting focus, I'll just use a ref if it's on a login page or whatever it may be. And I also believe autofocus in React, so autofocus here, I don't believe that you can unmount and remount unless you conditionally render, elements based around the focus state. But I generally go with the ref anyhow for focusing. But yeah, refs are really useful. I want to demonstrate it now though, because we do see a lot of demonstrations online where people are just showing you this. It's like, well, is this really useful? Well, let me show you why it's useful. And I want to jump back in a second to this diagram and show you how exactly it's all working. So next, what I want to do, I want to bring in a counter. And this is going to demonstrate beautifully how refs work. So if we do set count, save this. useState cannot be, I need to bump that up a bit. And we're going to give that initial value 0. And then we're going to have a counter ref, and we're going to set this to 0 too. And then what I want to do in here, I just want to set increment counter ref. Give that its own function, just say counter ref dot current, because it's just an object, is plus or equal to 1. So basically what we've done there is essentially just created an increment function. And now what we've got to do, I'm going to come down here, I want to apply that and show you how this all works. So state count, and we'll just say count in there. And then in here, what I want to do, actually let's do it just below this so we can keep that there. We'll do button type, button, on click, and then we'll say set count is count plus 1. Close that, and we'll just say increment count, and then down here we'll split off this a bit so we can for reuse readability. I shall say, I'll give this a class name just because I want some margin top on there. Ref count counter ref dot current. And by the way, if you've used class components, you may have run into other ways to use ref. Essentially, it's just exactly the same. So if you've been using create ref, it's pretty much the same. We're just using functional components here. Essentially, it's just a function essentially. I know React can call it whatever it wants, but that's the reality. It's just, we just use, it's just a function. So yeah, anyhow, we've got a ref count, and then we'll go to the button. We'll set type equals button, and then we'll do on click increment counter ref. And we'll set increment ref count, and this is where the magic happens. So I will increase this, and let's take a look what's going on here. So we have, clear that. So we've got a state counter and a ref counter. So if I update the state counter, you see how on each re-render it's bringing me back into the focus. I'm not sure that's a good thing. I personally wouldn't want that, but if I just give this a refresh, there we are, I've got rid of it. But yeah, you got a state counter of 5, right? So yeah, it works great. It's re-rendering each time. So each time, we go through here and we're setting the state, it's saying, oops, let's zoom out of that. When we've already mounted, now we're updating. So when we're setting the state, we come down here, should component update, and then it's like, well, no, nothing's changed. There's no reason to cause a render. But actually, in this case, something has changed. We've incremented the count, so we're still in the render phase, but we are going to render. So we're going to render. There's nothing. There's no errors here, and we're not going to be pausing. Or yeah, actually, under hood, React could be pausing, waiting for some sort of I don't know, say some comparison, or some internals inside the core of React could be going on, so it could pause, could even abort or be restarted by React. But in this case, let's just go ahead with the notion that we've hit the render. Now we're in the pre-commit phase, so now it's going to get the snapshot of the virtual DOM, and it's going to read and say, oh look, this particular node with the counter has changed. So we're going to get the snapshot before update, and then it's looking in here in the commit phase. Can work with DOM, run side effects, schedule updates. Brilliant. That's exactly what we want, because we're in the update phase right here. So component did update. We've got that there. But here it says updates, React updates DOM and refs. And that's what it's doing. It's updating the DOM every time we click this here. Perfect. So we've hit it 10 times, right? And I'm like, okay, there's one on the increment ref, but why is it not working? Well, that doesn't trigger an update, so we're getting no updates, unfortunately, for the even though in here it says React updates DOMs and refs. Okay, brilliant, but it's not updating, so why is it not running through the updater? Well, as mentioned earlier, refs exist outside of the React render cycle until we manually trigger an update. So I have clicked this a few times now, and now I'm going to go onto this button here, and when I click this, it will trigger an update and it will render. I said render, it's a re-render essentially, because we're already on the page, we're mounted, everything's good. We're just going to come in here, we're going to do an update, and then boom, there you are. And if I click one more, it should take me to 20. There you are. So as you see, I keep clicking this, nothing happens until I trigger a state update. And that's all because, like I said, refs, we're targeting a DOM element essentially that's outside of React. React, when it's going through, and I imagine when it's doing the, this is very broad, right? And I'm sure only the core team can fully understand what's going on here. But when you're going through and you're hitting that ref, and it's going through and looking, doing a comparison, getting a snapshot before update, doing all this stuff, especially when you're setting state. If you have set state, it's like, okay, well, this ref changed, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go update. But the ref that we have, and we're doing an on-click, with our synthetic events, it's not going to happen because it exists outside the render cycle. So it is going to go update the DOM, but until React comes in and grabs the actual DOM and does a comparison against the virtual DOM, it's going to do nothing. But once it does that, it's going to go in here for the updater, because it's like, okay, someone set state by using the initial first button where we were setting the counter, and it's going to come down. It's like, well, yeah, we've got some refs in here that have changed, so let's commit them. And when we commit them and it's in the commit phase, that's it. There's no turning back. We're gonna, React can work with the DOM. It can run side effects. It can schedule updates, and that's where we get the update for this ref count here. But people may be asking, right, looking at this and saying, okay, why didn't you do most of the work in here inside the return? Well, when you come in here, it says in here, render phase, pure and has no side effects, may be paused, aborted, or restarted by React. Essentially, what's going on is we don't want to do that in here, because it could come in here when it mounts, or when it's updating. And inside the render, when it's doing the render, like in here, we could be doing an increment, and then it's going to go up and it's going to do a comparison, and you can get false positives. As said, if you are doing an asynchronous call or you're doing some sort of work that has side effects, you can potentially run into that race condition, or you can potentially run into data that you don't expect. So when you are doing something with side effects, stick it in a useEffect. And then that'll only get done inside this particular phase here. So when you're doing some sort of update, it's going to do it all in this particular cascaded block, I guess, in this case on this demonstration. But the commit phase, it can work with a DOM, run side effects, schedule updates. And that's essentially what it's doing. And once it's done all the rendering, then is when we could come in and we can start doing our asynchronous work. And there is some I wouldn't say weirdness, but if you don't know the internals, I mean, it is really hard to understand the internals of everything that's going on within the core of the React code base. But I believe the render phase, which is here, is asynchronous, so it's not updating the DOM, so we can always pause, stop, and restart it. So if there's work going on, then we can pause and wait for something that's got higher priority. The commit phase, though, this I believe it can be synchronous, depending on what's going on. So it does work with the DOM. It'll be running side effects, it'll be running updates, and I guess that's how the reconciliation algorithm works. But yeah, I mean, if this made much sense, hopefully it did. If you are looking for an alternative to, maybe you've got a form and you want to use refs inside there, feel free to give this a go. I do give a word of caution that using a ref, sometimes 99% of the time you won't need it. So do your research. I definitely recommend doing your research, seeing if you do need a ref, because generally speaking, even though people say it's intensive to do a re-render, React is very, very good, and it's very, very fast. So maybe you don't need the ref. In this case, I just wanted to demonstrate this to you and show you how it worked, and give you a real-world example as to the focusing on the element. The focus, I can kind of get on board with, but if you've got a complete form and you are essentially not updating or keeping any of the form elements in state until you maybe hit the submit button, there's probably better ways to be going about that. But yeah, that's how you use refs, or references, that's just what it's short for, in React. And one thing to note before signing off, just remember it's just an object with, it's just got a property of current in there, and that's all it is. Hopefully you are no longer scared to use refs, but as mentioned earlier, use with caution. Thanks for watching, and I shall see you in the next video.